All right, what should we make a video about this week? Looks like Sony's got a firmware update for the A7S III. That could be something. And it adds S-Cinetone. S-Cinetone. S-Cinetone? S-Cinetone. S-Cinetone. Oh, I get it. Sony Cinematone. S-Cinetone. Okay, that makes sense. It seems like there are a ton of people out there who are so excited about S-Cinetone coming to more Sony cameras. People have been begging and pleading with Sony to put it in some of their old cameras. There are videos out there explaining how to try and get the S-Cinetone look. So it begs the question, what the heck is S-Cinetone and why should you care? Well, S-Cinetone is a picture profile that was made to achieve a similar look to the images you would get from the Sony Venice cameras. This includes both an S-Cinetone gamma curve as well as an S-Cinetone color matrix. And if that sounded like another language to you, it basically means that it affects both the light and the color of your shots. We saw this introduced in the Sony Cinema camera lineup with the FX9, FX6, and FX3. But shortly after the announcement of the FX3, Sony also released S-Cinetone in a firmware update on the A7s III, which makes sense since basically the A7s III and the FX3 have the same brains inside them. So what is the big deal with S-Cinetone and should we be excited? Well, it seems like there are three main things that people are hyped up about. First off, it's supposed to have incredibly pleasing color reproduction, specifically with accurate and flattering skin tone rendering. Secondly, the way that it deals with contrast in the image is supposed to be more filmic looking than a standard picture profile without being flat and in need of grading. And thirdly, this profile was designed to use straight out of camera, which means the idea is to deliver a great film-like look without having to spend any time grading. This is ideal for quick turnaround jobs, things like weddings, or even just the fact that social media is turning around so fast these days. Or, of course, there's just people who don't like grading. But the question is, does it live up to the hype? Is this something worth going up to the A7s III or the FX3 for? So, of course, I took some test shots. We can take a look at them now and you can decide for yourself. Okay, so first things first, we're gonna look at just a grayscale, and I've got three different options here. So I've got no picture profile, just straight out of camera. Then I've got our S-Cinetone, and then I've got an S-Log3. Now let's keep in mind that because S-Cinetone is designed to be deliverable straight out of camera, so you're not supposed to have to grade it at all, it's more comparable to the regular standard no picture profile. S-Log3 is designed to give you more dynamic range and more control in your color grading process. So comparing standard profile versus S-Cinetone is kind of like apples and oranges. Comparing that to S-Log3 is like comparing that to a tree. So personally, I would argue that the standard and the S-Cinetone are kind of in the same category, whereas S-Log3 is a different tool almost entirely. But we'll still compare them anyway. So we've got this grayscale image here so we can kind of see what's happening with the dynamic range and how it's dealing with the shadows and the highlights. So what we're looking at here is the waveform and the image on standard profile, so no picture profile. And then when we switch over to S-Cinetone, you see it squished in the highlights just a little bit, and it also raised the blacks a little bit here. Standard, this is S-Cinetone. So it's definitely giving you a little bit more dynamic range. And then of course, if we go over to S-Log3, we're gonna see that it's squished in quite a bit because it needs to get stretched back out in the color grading process. And if we were to go ahead and do a color space transform on that, now we'll see it come somewhere closer to the range. So we've got standard, S-Cinetone, which is a little bit squished, and then S-Log3, which is now technically stretched back out, but still slightly different than our S-Cinetone curve. But the question isn't what does it look like on a grayscale, the question is what does it look like when we're actually using it? So what I've got here are a couple of different scenes so that we can do some comparisons. Okay, so starting off with this, we've got some skin tones in here so we can compare that, but we've also got a really nice high contrast scene. This is with no picture profile on it whatsoever, and then if we switch over to the S-Cinetone, you can see that the blacks in my hoodie here are getting a little bit of a lift. The big thing that I notice is that in the skin tone, there's a lot less color going on. So if we zoom in on my face there and I go back to the standard profile and then back to S-Cinetone, So definitely less saturation when we're talking about S-Cinetone. And also the highlights, notice these highlights on the nose here, they're a little bit softer. So you can also see from the waveform, things are just a little bit squished in. So there's a little bit of a nice roll off happening in the highlights that softens things out. The other thing to note here is that in standard picture profile, it looked sharper. In the standard picture profile, the detail is set to 0, whereas in S-Cinetone, the detail is automatically set to -5. Comparing this to S-Log3, where the detail is set to -7. Now this is my S-Log3. Let's take a second and throw a conversion on there. So with just the Rec. 709 conversion, you can see that it's still not as contrasty as the S-Cinetone. So this is our S-Cinetone, and this is our S-Log3 converted to Rec. 709. We've just got more to work with the dynamic range of S-Log3. So in a scene like this where there is a lot of dynamic range and we want to capture all that, it might make sense to go with S-Log3. Now, of course, I could grade this and there's lots of room to play with here. So we could go into our color, bring up the gamma, and then I can see a little bit better that side of my face. I can bring down the lift so that we bring our blacks down, so we're kind of moving our contrast curve a little bit here. And now I've got something a little bit more similar to what we're seeing in the S-Log version. So this is the S-Log, that's the S-Cinetone with just a quick grade on it. But again, the idea of S-Cinetone is that you're not supposed to have to grade it. So in this next shot, we've got a lot more colors. So this is our S-Log version. Here's our S-Cinetone version, and then here's our regular standard no picture profile version. So between the standard and the S-Cinetone, notice the intense shift in the yellow down here. These are the exact same settings between these two shots. So again, we've got that little bit of desaturation, but the colors are shifting ever so slightly, which is definitely what people were looking for to get the skin tones looking better. Next shot, we got a lot of blue going on in here. So this is the S-Cinetone shot. There's the regular shot. Look how the blue shifts. There's a couple of different types of blue. There's this like teal, and then there's this kind of deeper blue here too. So that's the S-Cinetone, that's the regular. And then our S-Log3, S-Cinetone, and regular. So we've got our S-Log3 here, our S-Cinetone, and then our regular. And especially on this one, we've got a lot of skin-like colors here going on, lots of oranges and kind of yellows and such. We've got a lot of desaturation and then a slight shift in the actual colors themselves. S-Cinetone and our regular. The last one here, we got lots of blue, lots of red. This is our S-Log3, S-Cinetone, and then our regular. Okay, so from looking at all this footage, here's what we know. S-Cinetone, when compared to the standard picture profile, definitely has a little bit more dynamic range. It's a little less contrasty and a little less saturated, but there is definitely a shift in the colors. As I've mentioned a bunch of times in this video, it is not a replacement for log profiles. If you need maximum dynamic range, you're gonna wanna use a log profile. So my question was, can you get the best of both worlds, getting the dynamic range of S-Log3 while getting the colors of S-Cinetone? And the answer is, yes, you can. If you go to your picture profile 8, which is S-Log3, and then go down to S-Gamut3 Cine, you can change it to S-Cinetone. Now this means that we're gonna have to slightly change the way that we deal with the footage once we get it into our editing software. So with our regular S-Log, we can just apply our S-Log3 color space transform again. But when we go to do the same with the version that has the S-Cinetone colors, see what happens. Notice that the colors are all oversaturated and stuff like that because it's converting from the S-Log3 color space. So we're gonna go ahead and change that. Because S-Cinetone is designed to be used as a delivery profile, we can use Rec. 709, and that should give us similar colors to what we're seeing in our S-Cinetone. So this is our S-Log3 converted to Rec. 709. Take a look at the color of this building and the color of the railing. Then the same shot with the S-Log3 but the S-Cinetone color space, and look at how the yellow shifted. You can see that the color is actually changed. It's not just that it's desaturated, it's actually a different color slightly. So if you really like those S-Cinetone colors, you can get that while still gaining some dynamic range from using S-Log3. Now that we've taken a look at all the test footage, leave a comment down below and let me know what you think of S-Cinetone. Is it something that you're gonna wanna use, or are you gonna stick with the standard profile? Or are you the kind of person who likes to grade no matter what and is going to use a log profile? Personally, I love to have the extra control of S-Log3, so I'm probably going to be using that most of the time, but it's cool that I can still get those S-Cinetone colors if I really want to. On your way down to the comment section, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button and hit the bell notification so you don't miss out on future reviews and tutorials. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.